Yo, what is going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops, and today we are going to hop right back into our top 50 list. As you've noticed, I've been dropping a lot of videos left and right, all for my top 50 list in honor of 5K subs. And today we are going to discuss someone by the name of Gary Payton, aka The Glove. Now, where does he rank on my all-time list? Personally, I have Gary Payton ranked at number 47. Now, we're going to hop right into Gary Payton here in a second, but first of all, I need you guys to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and be sure to leave a comment at the end of the video what you think about Gary Payton all time. Maybe I overrated him, maybe I underrated him, or maybe I rated him just right, but you guys have to let me know. But without further ado, let's get right into The Glove. Starting with Gary Payton, over his career, he was a 9-time NBA All-Star, pretty much every year from 1994 until 2003. The only exception was 1999, but in that season, they didn't have an All-Star game because it was a lockout year. He also made 9 All-NBA teams, which is pretty impressive. He made 2 All-NBA first teams from 1998 and also 2000, and he made 5-time All-NBA second team from 1995, 96, 97, 1999, and 2002. In terms of his third team selections, he made it in 1994 and 2001. Now, Gary Payton is probably widely known as one of the best point guard defenders in NBA history, if not the greatest point guard defender in NBA history. And that's why in 1996 he won Defensive Player of the Year, and a big reason why he has the nickname known as The Glove. In terms of his all-defensive selections, he's made 9 times on the all-defensive first team, which is actually the most selections by a point guard, and even tied for the most first-team selections with players such as Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Kevin Garnett. In 1996, which was also the year he won Defensive Player of the Year, he was the NBA steals leader for the first time. But one of the biggest things about Gary Payton is that he was an elite trash talker. This is something that maybe you might not think is so important because it's like, oh, that's just something that's verbal. It's not really something in terms of your output in the game. However, Bobby Knight once said that mental is the physical as 4 is to 1. So it's always going to be a huge gain when you can have that psychological advantage over the opponents as well. And another thing that people always say is that the best ability is availability. And there might not be someone who is more durable and more available in their prime years than Gary Payton. In fact, he played 786 games in his first 10 seasons, only missing 2, which is crazy to think of. Over a 10-year stretch, he only missed 2 games. That's just wild. In his first 12 years, he only missed 5 games. And those 5 games were the only 5 games that he missed as a member of the Seattle SuperSonics, where he's most famously known for. Oddly enough, though, Gary Payton actually has a higher position on the all-time offensive win share list as opposed to the all-time defensive win share list. He sits at approximately 96.7 offensive win shares as opposed to 48.9 defensive win shares, ranking him 29th and 52nd respectively. In fact, on the all-time win shares as a whole, he ranks 29th all-time at 145.5. Also, an interesting stat is that he ranks 40th on the all-time triple-double list at 15 total, and his value over replacement player rating ranks him 26th all-time at about 62.5. But now let's get to the stat that obviously will scream Gary Payton to you. To add on to this, he is 4th all-time in total steals for his career at 2,445. The only players that are ranked above him are John Stockton, Jason Kidd, and Michael Jordan. And the only one that Gary Payton played more games than for their careers was Michael Jordan. Sticking more to his defensive side of things, he had 8 seasons where he averaged over 2 steals per game. Along with this, in multiple seasons and playoff runs, he averaged just as many or more steals per game than turnovers. Now let's hop more into his playoff side of things. The Glove had a pretty interesting playoff career, to say the least. I mean, he averaged over 20 points per game in 5 different playoff runs, 7 assists per game on 4 different runs, and 5 rebounds per game on 4 different runs as well. In fact, in 1993, they took the best record Phoenix Suns to a Game 7. Record-wise, this was the greatest Phoenix Suns team of all time, and they were led by MVP Charles Barkley, along with a bunch of other solid players such as Kevin Johnson, Dan Marley, Richard Dumas, and so on. However, one of the things against the Glove is that this wasn't in his prime. And in fact, maybe if it was in his prime, they very well could have went on to the NBA Finals, where they would have played the same team they played in 1996, which was the Chicago Bulls. And quite possibly, You know, as many say, Gary Payton defended Michael Jordan better than anybody else in finals history. And the Bulls, this was their worst record for a year that they made the finals in 57-25. And even during the playoffs, Michael Jordan was found gambling at casinos during playoff series. So it seemed like his mindset wasn't completely there, especially against that Knicks series. And it was ultimately after this season ended where Michael Jordan decided to go play some baseball. Along with how we saw Gary Payton in Game 4 and Game 5, especially in the 1996 finals, there's a good chance that the Sonics could have been champions this year. I'm not saying that it would have happened, but there's still a possible chance. But before we move on to that actual 1996 finals, let's discuss more that 1993 Western Conference Finals series against the Phoenix Suns. Gary Payton still averaged about 12 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and really was kind of efficient. But the main thing is that obviously he wasn't getting nearly as many touches in the offense in terms of his scoring capabilities. He was averaging just over 11 field goal attempts a game in the series, whereas in his prime years he shot about 17.5. This was also probably the second closest chance that he had to winning a championship with the Seattle SuperSonics. But let's move on to where he was the closest to winning the title. Now, as for that 1996 series, though, where the Sonics did play the Chicago Bulls, of course the Gary Payton adjustment helped, but the defense he was playing before then was still pretty rough for his standards, along with his poor offensive play. I mean, he had a defensive rating of 118.7, and he wasn't even really guarding Michael Jordan for a majority of the series, which is pretty bad, at least in terms of games 1 through 3. And he also shot roughly 43% true shooting in those games to allow the Bulls a 3-0 lead and ultimately win the series. So while he wasn't really able to contribute much on the defensive end, his offense wasn't much better or any better. And I get it that he was injured, but you'd think maybe he could help out on one of those aspects. However, Payton's peak would surprisingly come after this, from around 1998 to 2002, where he made 2 All-NBA first teams, 1 All-NBA second team, 1 All-NBA third team on 4 straight All-Defensive first team years, while averaging 22.9 points per game, 8.7 assists per game, 5.2 rebounds per game, 1.8 steals per game, on shooting splits that round to about 45% from the field, 33% from 3, and 76% from the free throw line. In terms of league MVP shares, he would finish in the top 10 for voting in 8 seasons throughout his career. He would finish top 6 for 6 of those seasons, and even top 3 in the 1997-1998 season, where many people forget about the Seattle SuperSonics this year. Obviously, the Chicago Bulls and the Utah Jazz were the top 2 records, sitting both at 62 and 20 as the first seed for each conference, and even both of them made it to the NBA Finals. However, the Seattle SuperSonics were also 61 and 21 and were a top 3 record in the NBA behind only those 2 teams. This was also in the aftermath of Shawn Kemp's departure. However, in the playoffs, they were upset by the Los Angeles Lakers in the second round. Gary Payton wasn't too bad in that series, but it was a disappointing outcome because Kobe Bryant did miss 2 of those games of that series, and his minutes per game were being monitored heavily as well. In fact, he only averaged about 3.7 points per game that series, which is just crazy to think of for Kobe. Meanwhile, though, on the other hand, nobody could stop Shaq. So that was going to be the biggest problem when they came to the playoffs. But of course, you know, he would have other finals runs, like in 2004 when he was with the Lakers, or in 2006 when he won that title with Miami. And he even played a pretty big role in the finals series against Dallas. But as we know, the glove is mostly known for his Seattle days. As for being ranked 47th on my all-time list, I feel like this is properly rated. I mean, he had his ups and he had his downs, but his mentality, his leadership, his two-way greatness, arguably the best two-way point guard in NBA history, and his underrated abilities as both a true point guard and a combo guard shouldn't really be overlooked. However, most people, I feel like, have him around here all the time, so I think it's fair to say that he deserves a spot. He's a guy that many teammates would grow to hate if they didn't buy into him, but if they do, then the results will show. And in terms of his peak, it's very arguable it could be a top 5 point guard peak ever, and he always can raise the ceiling of pretty much any team to hit their best of their abilities. I think that that's the most fitting way to mark his value, and it kind of fits like a glove. The glove. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about Gary Payton, because a lot of people don't really talk about him quite as much anymore. I feel like people underrate, like I said, his combo guard abilities, his playmaking, because mainly when you think of Gary Payton, the first thing that comes to your mind is elite defender as a point guard. but people don't really realize how great he was at distributing the basketball, how great he was at scoring the basketball. I mean, this guy had several seasons averaging over 20 points per game. And he's just entertaining, both on the court when he played and off the court. I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched him as a coach in the Big Three, but I always get a good kick out of watching Gary Payton there. It's just really funny the way that he is so serious about every single moment of every single game. But I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comment section below what you think. Is this a justified spot at number 47 for him? Should he be higher? Should he be lower? But without further ado, I'm going to end this video because, like I said, at the end of all these videos, I have a lot more yet to make. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.